Lifeboat Live. We have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck.
Hey, everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the lifeboat on the other side of the glass. As always, it's my partner in crime, the other Captain, Mark Wages. So, every once in a while, we do a video that is number intensive. You know what I mean? A lot of the stuff that we talk about, there really are only so many subjects in recovery. You follow me? We're not breaking new ground very often. So more often than not, we're talking about relapse, or we're talking about, falling in love early on in recovery. I mean, there's about, I think, 27 or 28 different subjects that we could rotate through. Then every once in a while, we do a video on something that is research related, and they're always a little different. And lately, they seem to all be centered around the opioid crisis. So bear with me, because this one, people, you're going to like. Even if that is not your substance of choice, this is pretty fascinating. We've covered a lot about the opioid crisis, especially in the recent past. We talk a lot about fent, and you know something, I'm going to mess these names up intentionally these days. So try to keep up and follow along. The reason being, when I did the last good rant, and we talked about the beast from the east, believe it or not, that thing fully monetized. And that thing was about the most controversial show we have done in a year and a half. And yeah, that one gets the green check. I just looked at it and went, you got to be kidding. So we've been talking a lot about nits, a lot about fent, about the benzo dope. We talked about, did a couple of shows on that. But we also did a show on the Sackler family. These are the people that brought you OxyContin. And in many ways, the start of the opioid epidemic. However, all of the blame doesn't lay with them. They certainly get a lot of it, no question. They get a lot of it, because they knew very early on in the game that the stuff was addictive. They knew people were crushing it and snorting it. There are internal memos where they were talking about the price of this stuff on the street, right? And this was in the the mid '90s, early on in their game. So yeah, there's a lot of blame to fall on them. However, then the government gets involved. And anytime the government gets involved, you get the law of unintended consequence, right? Brought to you by the good people at the CDC and the U.S. government. Thank you, Brandon. Good to see you, bud. And that's exactly what happened. In 1996, Purdue Pharma rolled out OxyContin, right? And when they did, that first year, they did 48 million in sales, which is a ton of money. Right? That is a lot of money. But it's a drop in the bucket if you think that within 4 years, they were doing 1.1 billion in sales. 1.1 billion. And they did this on the back of a BS story telling everybody on the planet that this stuff was not addicting. And they took it from 2 different angles. One that we talk about all the time was a report that wasn't a research report. It was just a letter that somebody wrote. And the other one is, if something is time released, and you don't get it all at once, well, then obviously can't be as addictive, right? Because when you get a big hit of any kind of drug, you get a rush. That rush can take you down, that rush can take you up, whatever, but you get the rush. Well, with an Oxy 80, there's no rush. You eat that thing the way that's designed to be consumed, and you're going to get 5 milligrams consistently doled out for an entire day, right? Until 80 is gone. Well, if you crush it and snort it, obviously you got 80 milligrams of oxycodone all at once. So it's like doing 80 milligrams of Percocet up your nose, or 80 milligrams of Percocet into the vein. This is a very addictive process, and it really took off and got ugly really, really fast. And this caused the start of the opioid epidemic. And we had that first year that oxys were really big, we had about 18,000 people that overdosed and died. And believe it or not, people, that scared America. Obviously, we've gotten over that. But that scared America, and it kind of forced their hand. Purdue was able to drag their feet for a few years, but right around 2010, right, they came rolling out with a new version of this drug, right? Prior to that, a lot had been going on behind the scenes, and we talked about this in the show that we did on the Sackler family. You might want to go back because I don't want to rehash everything that we did on that one because people will get bored and hang up on us. But there was a lot of bribery going on, plain and simple. You can call it whatever you want. There was a lot of money being donated to every political party on the planet, tons of it. And, both directions, they were hedging their bet. And on the other side of it, the Food and Drug Administration, it's their job to make sure that whatever dope hits the street legally is safe, right? Whether it's a heart, a high blood pressure medication, right? Or it's a painkiller. There is a long, arduous process that you have to go through to ensure that the product you're going to put out is safe. It makes you wonder how Oxy 80s hit the street, right? How did the people at the FDA screw this up that bad? Because it's awful, right? How did you not know that crushing this was going to get rid of the entire process of time released? And this was going to be the biggest blast of dope that anybody who has ever been addicted to anything had a shot of buying. 80 milligrams of Percocet in one pill. Wow. Right. They didn't see this coming. I think they saw it coming, but the FDA, one of the guys that headed up the FDA was working at Purdue Pharmaceutical about 15 minutes after he left the FDA. That kind of thing makes you scratch your head a little bit. Right. Okay. Well, at that point, brings us to about the early 2000s. And by 2007, there was a lot of really odd stuff going on. And the federal government started to step in, right? Because this was becoming an issue. By 2007, now the deaths are up around 48,000. And that's enough. Now people are screaming. And there is a ton of people out there who are addicted to drugs. The Oxy thing was really becoming an issue. So they started to get investigated. And the top 3 cats that worked at Purdue were under the microscope. These guys are going to prison. There's just no two ways about it, right? These people are going to prison. The internal memos prove hands down that they lied through their teeth, that they knew exactly what was happening. Within about 4 months of this product hitting market, they were getting all of the reports that their MS Contin, right, which was the predecessor to Oxy, right, morphine sulfate, time released. Well, they were getting the reports that this was the most abused drug in history as far as pharmacy drug. And they knew before they sold the first Oxy that this was going to be a whole lot worse. So the government comes in and starts to do a big investigation. This is the point at which the good old US of A had an opportunity to slap these 3 people into the Stone Age, right? Don't give them 5 years. Give these people 20 because they're the biggest drug dealers that ever lived, right? Nobody was selling more dope than these people. They deserve to go away for a really long period of time. Now, as I always say, both parties suck, right? Plain and simple, both parties suck. when this started, it started on a Democratic administration. Now, before anybody who leans left decides I'm an idiot, when these three people were supposed to be getting, sentenced to huge prison sentences, a deal was struck between Purdue Pharmaceutical and the United States of America. The Bush White House and their Department of Justice decided that a really huge fine, in fact, the largest fine that had ever been paid by any pharmaceutical company, that and 3 misdemeanor counts. No joke. The top 3 people were charged with misrepresenting a product for sale. Right? At this point, 180,000 people had died on their product, a product they knew was killing people, a product they knew was going to get abused, a product they knew was addictive as hell. And 3 misdemeanor counts. These people didn't do a day, not one day. And you know what this did, right? Think about it. It told everybody in this industry that this is the Wild West. Make as much money as you can possibly make selling whatever the hell you're trying to sell, but make sure you do it quick, because at some point they're going to come in and shut you down. That's the worst thing that's going to happen, by the way. It's not going to be any worse than that. You're not going to do any prison time. Hell, you're not even going to get a good slap on the wrist. You're just going to pay a fine. So you got to make sure that you make $10-12 billion so that when they hit you with the $3 billion fine, you can just go like this. You guys take a check, right? And write out $3 billion and be done. This was the perfect opportunity to take the opioid epidemic and nip it in the bud, but they didn't. So when these 3 individuals got charged with misdemeanors in 2007, Purdue got emboldened. They headed up to Congress and said, hey, you know what? We know that there's a problem with this. We know there is. So we don't want anybody else making this. Don't let generics start being made of this, because we need to change the formula before you would ever let that happen. So now they've got 3 or 4 more years to just really make a lot of money. And what they came up with during that time was a product that you couldn't snort and you couldn't shoot. The only way you could take this drug was to swallow it, right? That sounds like a beautiful thing, doesn't it? Good idea. Should have done that from the beginning. The law of unintended consequences now comes in. You got guys doing 8 of these things a day and they're crushing them, right? Now he finds out that they got to swallow this thing, right? That there's no way to catch a buzz. In fact, there's no way to get well. If you're doing 80 milligrams at a whack, or for some people, 160 milligrams at a whack, you're going to take 5 milligrams every hour and a half for an entire day? Just no way. So what happened is all of those people who were addicted already went to the street and started buying heroin. Plain and simple. They went to the street and they started buying heroin. And now the death totals really started to rack up. And when you think it just can't get any worse, enter the CDC, right? The good people at the CDC decided that one of the big problems with Oxy was that there were doctors who were writing, in some cases, 250 prescriptions a day. Think about that. And there are pill mills that had 8 or 9 doctors writing 250 scripts a day. You think you could see 250 patients a day? If all they had to do was come in and high five you, you couldn't see 250 of them a day, much less sit down, diagnose them, talk to them about side effects, blah, blah, blah. So the CDC says this has got to stop. Right? This pill mill thing is out of control, and you guys are writing prescriptions for OxyContin for people who say they have a hangnail, right? What are you in here for? Well, you know what? Every once in a while I get this rash. It itches a little bit. Would OxyContin help? I mean, literally, there was nothing they weren't writing prescriptions for Oxy for. So the CDC comes in and says, not only are you not doing that anymore, that stops today. But if you got somebody that you're prescribing to right now, let's say they're doing 8 to 9 80s a day, right? Next month, they don't get a script. That's it. They're done. So the doctor has 30 days to titrate somebody down from, do the math, right? 800 milligrams a day to 0 in 30 days. I got news for you, people. That's not possible, right? It simply isn't possible. So Not only were these people going to go to the street, they were going to go to the street dope sick. They were going to go to the street, I mean, needing the stuff in a really bad way. Now, the CDC today, or earlier this month, but in their press release, said the reason that they got to step in and start doing things is because now they have to reevaluate, because the influx of synthetics like fent hitting the street has caused a serious problem, and they need to reevaluate. I got news for you. The reason that that stuff hit the street is because of the CDC. You kicked out 1 million people or so, right? Every neighborhood had drug addicts going to dealers and saying, do you have any pills? Well, the pills were gone instantly, right? The original oxys were gone in a matter of weeks. And then simple economics 101. What do you do if you've got a crap load of people saying, I just want perk 30s? You counterfeit them. This fent getting here isn't an accident, people. It's not an accident. And once they started going down that road and realized that the profit margin was a whole hell of a lot bigger, enter the beast from the east, right? But the CDC, as almost always is the case with these losers, they're always playing catch up. And the move that they do always causes a larger problem than the current problem. I mean, no two ways about it. So the 4th of November this year, the CDC has loosened up all of the guidelines that they put on in 2016. Keep in mind, in 2016, they scared the hell out of doctors. Right around the time that they passed these, the new guidelines, and they shouldn't be called guidelines because they were rules. Guidelines are, this is what we recommend, right? That isn't what it was. It was the you can't do this anymore. They call them guidelines. They were rules.
Even the article I sent you sounded like that, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the way it is.
Yeah.
No, there's no way to argue it. They said this is how it's going to be. And at the same time, the FBI is showing up at pill mills all over the United States. And I mean, literally all at once, right? There was this roundup where these people went out and arrested, I mean, thousands of doctors. And some of them got life. True story. There are guys that are doing the rest of their life in prison for writing scripts for Oxy. Now, if you're a doctor left behind and they say, well, there's some things that you can write scripts for Oxy, but you really got to be careful because hell with that. Yeah. Not writing any scripts for that stuff. You know what I mean? Everybody knew somebody that had just gotten arrested or gotten in trouble for writing prescriptions for opiates.
And God forbid,
so now you go into a doctor
for somebody that is on Suboxone on accident,
right?
You know what I mean? That doctor right there is really in some trouble. Then
they're done.
Yep.
But the incredible thing, when you look at the big picture. Now we take all of these individuals who truly need opiates. If you don't believe that there are people out there that need opiates, then you're just, I mean, come on. You know, I'm not saying there aren't a ton of people who abused them. I was that guy. But there are people out there that need them. There's a ton of medical conditions that can't be treated any other way. But you go in and tell them about that medical condition, they tell you they can't help you. Or we'll give you Toradol, right? We'll give you an anti-inflammatory, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, basically Advil, right? We'll give it to you in a shot, but it's friggin' Advil. So now these people do what? They go to get it wherever they need it, because I promise you they're not going to go without. If the pain is so bad that you can't get out of bed, you're going to buy a pill that says M30 on it, whether you get it from a dude on the corner or whether you get it from a pharmacy. And I promise you, they're not looking at the pill really closely. And besides, they probably haven't seen a real one in a year. It's not like they usually have one laying around to compare the two, right? I mean, those days are over. So again, the law of unintended consequences now forces all of these people to the street looking for medication anywhere they can find it. And now that the death tolls have hit 100,000, 108 a year, the CDC needs to come in and do something about it, which is really kind of like shutting the barn door after the cows have already left, so to speak. The real problem,
the law of
the way I
unintended
see it,
consequences.
this is just an opinion now, folks. This is just an opinion. But where I see the real problem in this is that you've got the Food and Drug Administration, right? They make sure that the pain medication is safe and that they can put this on the street without killing people or enslaving them. Obviously, they dropped the ball. And then you've got the Center for Disease Control. Their job is oversight. They need to make sure that this stuff, that everything the FDA said was fine is in fact fine, right? They're the overseers of all of this. And if doctors start messing up and doing stuff they're not supposed to, in comes the DEA, right? And the Federal Bureau of Investigation, because of the fact that these things are a Schedule 3 narcotic, which means that all of the paperwork literally goes to 3 places, and they're crossing state lines, right? As they're doing this, they're going to a federal registry for everything written. So it's a federal offense. So the FBI comes in. Now you've got all of these agencies out there, not one of which has any idea what the other one is doing, right? There's no cohesion at all. And the law of unintended consequence is really the nature of this entire story. It's a knee-jerk reaction to whatever's going on. Come in and do something stupid. So during the whole heroin part of this crisis, they said, boy, you know what? Heroin is killing people. If somebody gets caught with anything under, a gram and up, right? They get caught with a gram and up. They upped the prison time that people were doing over a gram to unbelievable amounts of time. And if somebody had more than an ounce, they were going to the feds. It was no longer a state offense. Well, people, I promise you, a gram is personal consumption. I promise you. Take it from a guy who did 7 of them a day. That means if I ever got pulled over, right? I was a drug dealer. As far as they were concerned, 7 grams, no, I was slinging this stuff. There's no way that's for personal use. Track marks, all of it. No. Because again, mandatory minimums, not guidelines, rules that don't make any sense. So now all of these people are getting incarcerated. The cost is going up. These are the story we did the other day, $1 trillion in losses, right? So all of the people who were created by the unintended consequences of our government and the fine people at Purdue Pharma, right? If you talk to people now who are addicted to opiates, according to studies, 80% of them, 4 out of 5, say that they started off addicted to pills. 4 out of 5, which means this was not something that took place in a bubble. They created this. Their stupidity and greed created this problem. And now they're back. Now what's going to happen is, I promise you, the doctors from 2016, the last time that they wrote these rules, you realize how many doctors weren't around for that? How many pain specialists weren't around for that? So they're going to come in and talk to those people and say, hey, you know what? You got to start writing scripts for this. Because the people are going to the street to get the medicine. Look at the death count. You got to start really making this easy. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? It's the exact same thing. We're going to watch it happen again. And as sure as God made little green apples, in about 5 or 6 years, the great people at the CDC are going to come walking in and saying, oh, no, we're done. Stop. This is just how stupid all of this is. They need to get together and get on the same page, because they are getting to the point where they're killing 300 people a day, right? They drove these people to the substances they're buying. And you wait and see in the 23 Congress, the rules that they make about people getting caught with fent. There is no other option for these people. You realize that? If you had a pain issue, or if you were addicted to drugs that you used to get from Purdue, there's no option for anything else. It's not like you can say, well, I'm not going to do the fent. I'm going to go with the heroin. I think it's safer. No, very few places in the country can you pull that off, because it's just not there anymore. It's disappearing. Every once in a while, I talk to people who say, yeah, you know what? I can still get it. It's a lot easier to get the other, but there are a lot of places in this country where it's straight dried up. There's no option. So force them to go take these pills that are counterfeited, risk their life. And then when you catch them with some, throw away the key. Because that's going to stop this epidemic, right? They need to talk to some people that have a handle on what's going on. Honestly, because the people that are making decisions in this are absolute idiots. You know, if you got addicted to your substance of choice because you started out at the doctor's office, feel free to call in. I'm going to tell you guys a story, and I'm sure that I've told this on the boat before, but I was skiing, and I was living in Utah at the time, and I injured myself. I was injuring myself a lot, but this season I was pole planting, right? You ski down, you know, the pole disappeared, right? I hit a hollow spot on a glacier and the pole literally just disappeared. I ski by and I can't get it back out. And the way my wrist is in that strap, it just, I mean, they called it a total. I tore the labrum, the rotator cuff, I dislocated the shoulder, and I broke the collarbone. And it was just like that. And it was so bad that when I went in and saw the doctor, he said, "We're going to operate on this right now." Like, I didn't even leave the hospital. They took me from there right into the ER, and they operated on my shoulder. And I'm on pills. They're putting me on pills right then. About 8 weeks after I got healthy enough to start skiing, I tore my Achilles tendon. I go back to the same doctor, and keep in mind, people, this is when they were giving out OxyContin like cotton candy. So the doctor said to me, "You know what? I can't keep writing you prescriptions for medications like this." And I thought, and I was a guy who abused drugs already at this point, and I thought, oh, here we go. He's like, "So I'm going to give you the name of a pain specialist that you need to go see." And I've told the story on here, I don't know how many times. They said, "Go find your own dose." They gave me a plastic baggie, a Ziploc bag like a drug dealer would give you, right? With a sticker on the side that said, you know, the name of the doctor and everything else like you would have on a regular pill bottle. And their response was, "Go figure out how many of these you need to take so that you don't feel any pain." That was the concept. That's what we were telling people, right? In the late 90s and in the early 2000s, the new edict was nobody in this planet should ever have to live with pain at any level.
Right.
For real.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not possible unless you open up the vault on some really heavy duty painkillers, right? And just see what happens. But then it's what landed us right here, right? So my dose was 12 a day, 12 OxyContin 80s a day. Now, they were really difficult for me to crush and shoot. I was not good at it. I mean, plain and simple. I could smoke them, I could snort them, but at that point, that's not how I was getting stuff into my body. At that juncture of my life, everything I did was injected. So I gave up.
Did you have the knowledge of how to introduce that into your system, which was quicker and all that yet, or not?
In theory, I mean, yeah. At that point, you know, the internet was cooking, and I was going on to sites that were just forums for people who talked about the best way to cook this, the best way to do everything.
Okay.
The bioavailability. Yeah, I had a pretty good handle of what was going on. I mean, by the time I got the first one, there were already people going, "Yeah, you just cut the coating off the outside and crush that thing up because the time releases in the coating, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
But I never could figure out whether or not I got all the stuff out of it. You know, with heroin, you give it a little flame, right? And as you pull the stuff up, it's gone, it disappears. Well, when you do that with an oxy, the powder remains in the spoon. In theory, you've just taken the medicine out of it, but all the bonding agents and all the other things that keep it together, and the cellulose and all of the things that they use, right? Those things remain in the spoon. So you just have this big lump of white stuff, and it just didn't work for me. I really was bad at it, and I never knew whether or not. So I'm cooking the stuff again. So I just said, "Broom it," and I started to sell them, and I was getting $50 a shot, right? So $600 a day. Now, if you sit and think about that, you go, "Boy, you know what? A guy can make a living on that. $600 a day." I would buy $600 a day worth of heroin. Now, this was early in the sort of the heroin part of this epidemic. So if you were going to buy a gram, which was very difficult to do because most people didn't sell grams then, but if you were going to get a gram, it was really close to $200. You know, where I was at is about $180 a gram. So I was picking up about 3 grams a day based on just selling my stuff. And by about the second or third month, the guy said to me, look, you want me to just bring dope? Right. This guy was sort of in the business. So he's bringing me oxys. I mean, he's bringing me tar. I'm giving him oxys. And this went on for a really long period of time until the insurance company went like this. No, that's literally how it went down. Right.
Yep.
No, you're done. I went in and the pain specialist that I was seeing said, your insurance company is not paying for any more oxys. Plain and simple, you're done. I said, so what the hell do I do now? And she said, well, we're going to write you a prescription for some cheaper pain medication that they will fill. That lasted about 2 months. And then the insurance company went, no, we're not paying for that either. And do you know what the only pain meds cheap enough to give me was?
What's that?
Methadone.
Wow.
Not at a clinic, writing prescriptions. And it was so damn big that when I would go to pick up my prescription, they would take the bottle off the shelf and put a sticker on the side with my name on it. And then give me another bottle because I was getting all they had was 10s, right? Well, I was doing almost 300 milligrams a day, right? Every day. So I remember the first time I went to the pharmacy, I've told this story too. I went in and I said, I handed the pharmacist the prescription. I'm sorry, we can't fill this for you, sir. I said, why not? We're not allowed to fill narcotics more than 1 month at a time. We can only do a month. And I said, oh, that is a month.
Yeah.
And instantly they thought we're going to call the cops because they got really nice and said, oh, okay. I'm sorry, we were confused. Have a seat.
Yep.
And about 5 minutes later, the black and whites pulled up, right? 2 police cars, and they came running in. Where'd you get the prescription pad, right? Blah, blah, blah. I said, the good news is my doctor's office is like 600 yards from here.
Let's go
so
talk to him.
you guys can give her a call. What's that?
Let's go talk to him.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
She jumped in her car and she came driving up there. She's about 4'6". She's a very short lady and tough as hell. But she came running in screaming, talking about my medical file and the things that I've been through and pain and how no American should have to live in this pain. And I mean, just up one side and down the other. And from that moment on, the pharmacist would happily give me the huge amount of.
I had an advocate like that too, also, Tommy, when I got hurt at work. And believe it or not, she did the same thing as what you're talking about. I actually had back surgery, and I went to go get my medication filled, and they were not going to fill it. And so I called her up, like, what am I supposed to do? I can't. I just had major back surgery.
Right.
I'm trying to get, because they asked me if I wanted to fill it at the hospital or if I wanted to fill it at my pharmacy. I said, well, let's fill it at my pharmacy. It's close to my house. So we took off. That's what we did. And sure enough, man, they were like, no, you can't have this.
That's, what? I think that's a story that probably went on with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I really believe that. Yeah. It got to a point where, it was almost like everywhere we would go that you would run into people. Everybody had a pain specialist, right? In the early 90s, and late 90s and early 2000s, every drug addict I knew had a pain specialist, right? We were all going to one or the other. And it was like a bragging thing. I had a friend named Danny, and when I told him what I was getting, he's like, well, it's the same prescription I'm getting. Right. But I get preloaded shots of Demerol for breakout pain. And I get morphine in an eyedropper that I can put underneath my tongue. And I was like, you got to be kidding, right?
Yeah, mine's bigger than yours.
Exactly. And it gets to a point, people, where if you believe the press clippings, if you're a doctor and they're telling you that this stuff isn't dangerous because of how slowly it gets bled out into the system, you got nothing to worry about. Well, then really stupid things happened. These guys started writing scripts to people for benzos at the same time as they would write prescriptions for people for opiates. And that's terrifying, right? Every doctor in the world knows that those two things together are a death sentence. 2 respiratory depressants and you're done. And God forbid, the person drinks 2 or 3 beers.
Oh, yeah.
Right now it's a recipe for disaster. And I knew people that were going and getting scripts for benzos, painkillers, and sleeping pills.
Like ketamine or something. Yeah.
Right. And in hindsight, looking back on that and just going, you got to be kidding. right? You absolutely have to be kidding.
How'd they ever wake up? Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Like,
Well,
wow.
and think of all the people that didn't.
Yeah,
I was going to make a list of all of the sort of famous cats that we lost, and the list is so damn big. People, it's crazy. You forget a lot of the people that have passed away from opiates and benzos, especially the combo of the two.
Right.
But it's frightening. And now we find ourselves in the exact same place, right? The government is now going to step in and say, you know what'll fix this? If we just let doctors give away this stuff, then they won't go to the street to get the fake version of it. If you don't think that's exactly what's going on in their heads, people, then you're not paying attention. Summer, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Honestly, thank you, Summer.
While you do,
but that's what's going on, people. They're allowing. Go ahead.
Let me do a YouTube thing here real quick before you get moving here again. Guys, we got like 70 people in here. If you guys could hit the like button for me, I'd really appreciate that.
Right? Yeah, that would definitely help the cause.
Yeah. How many we got? How many likes we got right now? Let me look real quick. Just 1 second. We got like 38 likes, and we got close to 70 people in the chat. So I'm sure we can get that up a little bit.
Right?
Do me a favor,
wouldn't bum us out if you hit the like button.
That's right.
But if you don't think that they sat and had this discussion, right? The geniuses at the CDC, probably in conjunction with whoever, right? But they got together and said, these people are going to the streets and buying counterfeit Perk 30s. Just start writing scripts for Perk 30s. Just do it, right? We'd be a lot. We're going to drop the number. The more Perk 30s end up on the street that are real, the less people are going to overdose. As dumb as that is, that's exactly where they're going with this. The problem becomes, and you probably have already figured this out, right? But the good people at the CDC haven't. The problem becomes the person that's going to a pain specialist tomorrow who's not addicted to anything, right? They've got a problem, but they're not yet addicted to anything. We're just going to create the next batch. For real, 10 years from now, we're going to be saying, if you talk to these people, 4 out of 5 of them started right after that stupid 2022 CDC ruling that you could give this stuff out like popcorn, right?
Yeah.
By the way, this one they're saying, this is actually a guideline.
Yeah.
For real. The last time, they weren't guidelines. This time, they are. Because they want doctors to be able to say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to write this for a little bit more than what it should be because this guy really is hurting. If you read the entire thing, and it takes a long time
it's a big
to read all
time.
And they're footnoted to 200 different places. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Crazy.
But the bottom line of it all is that they broke it down into the different rules, like who you can write scripts for. They list out the different ailments, and it's crazy. What they did was they said, here's 3 that you can't write opiate prescriptions for. I'm not kidding you, right?
No,
sickle cell anemia,
right?
That is one of them. Yeah. And then cancer. People who are dying for cancer because they don't want pain specialists treating those people. Oncologists can give this stuff out and have been able to always. They did not take a hit back when everyone else did. So they don't want doctors dealing with those people because you're going to get double dipping or whatever the concept. But yeah, those are really the two, the 2 ailments that anything other than that. Yeah. I mean, for real, they're even listing toothaches and.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Tommy. That's something that struck me kind of funny about that whole thing. It said that they don't want, after oral surgery, they want the dentist to be giving them, like Toradol or something. They want to use the NSAIDs instead of using the opiate for like teeth pain, mouth pain like that after surgery.
Good luck.
Yeah. And, I had to do it, but I knew I had to do it. I knew what was happening to me, because I'm on Suboxone. I knew that was what was going to happen with me,
right?
But most people that go in there don't have the issue that I've had and what we've all had, right? So why would they have to go by those guidelines for those people? And that's I think it's almost like a catch-22, isn't it? It's just what do you do here?
Yeah. Well, again, if everybody just got on the same page,
yep.
Right? But I would love to believe right now that they're thinking, we really want to help these people. We don't want to keep losing Americans. We really don't. But you know what they're saying for real? We're looking really bad, right? This administration is really looking awful. So we need to do something right now that's a Band-Aid that's going to fix this, or at least make it look like we're doing something about it. So the numbers are going to get better if we hand this stuff out, like the old days. They're going to say, don't do this. Like Mark said, they're saying, if you go in for oral surgery, they don't want you getting a opiate, but this is just a guideline, right? This is their way of going like this, right? It's the Pontius Pilate thing for real, right? I'm wiping my hands of this. You do what you do. These are guidelines. If you think the person needs it, you write it. But the CDC next time, they're not going to say, hey, you know what? We didn't say that you could write scripture. We just said those were guidelines and we told you not to do that. And you went and did it anyway. It really is their plausible deniability. That's what they have left for themselves. Tommy Burt says, no, I disagree. Most of those people that go there have gone through exactly what we have. That's the vehicle. That's the whole reason that they're there, in my opinion. 90% of them. Tommy, there's a lot of truth to that.
I was talking about dental surgery.
Right. That's what I was about to say. Yeah. But people that are going to see the dentist and oral surgeries, if you're going to see a pain specialist, yeah, I remember sitting in the lobby, and once again, I'm sure it's not like this anymore, right? Because of what the CDC has done, but you would go into the lobby, and even if it was a legit place, and by legit, I mean, they were going to see you. They weren't handing you a menu, right? I had to see this woman. I had to actually get x-rays done and things like that. It was legit. That they'll give you anything you want, but she had a paper trail for why she was giving it. And I would sit in the lobby, and there would be 25 people waiting to see one of the 6 doctors there. And you could look around the room and go, okay, that person's hurting, and the rest of these people are just here to get dope, and you'd see people in there like, doing the itch, or, just all of the affectations that you expect to see somebody that really needs the next batch. And, at the time, you heard all of the time from doctors, well, yeah, even if you get addicted, would you rather be addicted to pain, or would you rather be addicted to pain medicine? And it's a really stupid question, but it was the one that everywhere you went, that was the general consensus was that, and if you're really one of those people, but it's like Tommy Bird just said, how many of the people that are out there crying pain really need that? I'm not trying to offend anyone, and it's going to not work anyway. There are people that I'm going to offend, but to be really honest, I've never met someone that had an opiate problem who also could not list off a whole lot of things that, they had injured themselves. I had a lot of them, but to be really honest, very early on in the game, it was no longer about pain. It may have started that way, but it was about getting high. And then it was about staying well, right? And then just staving off the sickness. Once you're into the cycle, there's really, there's absolutely no hope. I truly believe we are in the beginning of end times. What is right will be wrong. What is wrong will be right. Sin and suffering will be celebrated. I'll tell you what, Claremont, I don't know how I could argue that point. I don't know how I could argue that point.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you look around right now, the things that are happening, you just scratch your head and go, are you woofing me? And I know that is a rabbit hole that I could spend the next 6 weeks going down, and it's probably not drug related. I'll throw in my 2 cents and tell you that I agree.
Yeah.
I really do.
I don't think there's many people here that wouldn't agree with you right now. Honestly, it's, and that's one thing, whatever your religious views are, I think all of us can agree that something is just changed in the world. And it's just what it is. If you can't see that, I'm sorry, you can't.
Tommy Bird's got a good one. It's the same principle as dumbing down school tests for our country's kids in order to make the test scores even higher. Seem higher. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That is as good an example as you could possibly come across. They can say they're doing a much better job. and they can guarantee that they're going to say it because they're just going to make it a whole lot easier, right? Because a kid that gets a 70 is now getting a C, right? Or the kids that are getting a 60 are now getting a D where it used to be an F. And yeah, it does no good, right? It's not helping anybody in the long run. And very similar, these new guidelines aren't going to be helping a whole lot of people. They really aren't. On the bright side, there are going to be people that aren't going to go to the street. That's a fact. But there are going to be a lot of people that probably wouldn't have been in the game, period. Somebody that might have just got a script, be off of it in 30 to 60 days, the way that it's supposed to work. Now they're going to get an opportunity to go to a pain specialist and start really working it, and that's, that really is how it works. You were right. The way that this works is people get into the system and it becomes just a hustle. It's an incredible way, to get really, really expensive drugs without having to go to the street. And there is probably something to the concept of, if you open up the gates and you put, 2 or 3 million real perk 30s on the street, the number of overdoses out there are going to cut down because some people are going to be occasionally getting real product. And make no mistake, there are a lot of people that went to pain management places that never had any intention of taking a pill. There were people that got busted. I was in prison with a guy who was taking homeless people. If they had an ID, all they needed was an ID, and he would put them on a bus, right? And he was driving from West Virginia all the way down south, and they were hitting the pill mills along the way. And back then, there were billboards, huge billboards, right, that were advertising opiates. But he would go in with, 60 people on the bus, and they would go in and get every single script that they could get. They'd get the benzos, they'd get the, the opiates, all the oxys they could get, and he'd hand all of them $100, and then they would drive back home, and a handful of pills. If that was their get down, they'd get some pills. But he got really, really wealthy doing this, and a whole lot of time. I mean, when they caught him, they threw away the key. And they probably should have, the people that really, anytime something like this happens, if you're going to open the floodgates, the criminals are going to see an angle, right? Always. They're always going to see an angle. But these days, I can't see how you could sell those and make money on the street. Seriously, even if you got them for free, the price of these fake counterfeit M30s, my understanding is that they actually are so cheap, it's just ludicrous. Kathy MC. I don't know that I've ever said hello to Kathy MC. Welcome to the Lifeboat.
I think.
Yeah, very cool. I love seeing names that I haven't seen before. Welcome, Kathy MC or Kathy Nick. Some doctors might be writing that per day. A rheumatologist has so many patients in pain every day, and if you call in, they would call you a pain RX to the pharmacy. There are really heavy duty laws about just calling in pain medications to the pharmacy. Like even when I was seeing my pain specialist and it was absolutely etched in stone, I had to walk into that office once a month. There was no chance. You cannot write a refill, and you can't just call stuff in. You also can't call stuff in outside of state lines. And they started getting real serious about doctors trying to only write to one pharmacy. This was another one of those Band-Aid things. In my medical assisted treatment, if I said to them, hey, there's a pharmacy right near me that is a whole lot cheaper than the one that I'm at, it's not going to happen. Like I'm locked in for a period of time. About every 6 months, they'll give you an opportunity. Hey, if you want to move, this is the time. But they're not playing games with that stuff.
Yeah, they don't. You're in a centralized system now. Whenever you get anything, everybody knows, and that's the thing. It doesn't take any effort at all now to look, and that's what. And to be honest with you, if it was like that from the beginning, we probably wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. And
well, prior to computers, once they got the entire Schedule 3 thing put into a computer. So like right now, if you get somebody, we work with a lot of people that are trying to get off of this stuff. So, we walk people sort of hand in hand through the process of medical assisted treatment, if that's what they're looking for. And I can't tell you how often, like I'll say to somebody, when is your next prescription supposed to come in? Because you're not going to be able to get Suboxone or anything else until that, because prescriptions cannot overlap, right? And very often the person will not give me the correct date. I don't think they were doing it, to be dishonest. I think that when you run out early, a lot of times you have no clue when the next one is. As addicts, we call the doctor and lean on them. But so often we get there and the doctor says, "Oh, you have a current prescription. It's not going to be up until the 17th, or whatever the date is." The system has really gotten good. I remember the old days, doctor shopping was something that was an epidemic as well. When oxys first came out, you could go hit 5 or 6 doctors. There was, yes, they were mailing off all of those things to Washington, but there was nobody looking at them. Honestly, unless they knew a crime was getting committed, there's nobody sitting there going through all of the paperwork to do that. But once that stuff got on the computers, once they had that centralized, the days of doctor shopping were over. And they've made strides. They really have. My takeaway, right, from today, it sounds like I've been bitching for the better part of 55 minutes, and I have. Everything we do in this country is a knee-jerk reaction. Everything we do is in reaction to something else, and it's never, ever measured. We always go way off sides, right? The first guidelines said, that's it. You're not writing anything. You're not writing anything. This one, it's not going to be the Goldilocks thing. They're not going to go, well, we tried it wide open and we tried to completely shut down. So let's go somewhere in the middle. Like that would make sense, right? I promise you that's not what's going to happen. It never goes down that way. And it's frustrating to watch. It really is. Supply and demand. Unfortunately, the United States loves to get high. You're absolutely right, Bubba. And it does come down to supply and demand. There are so many people right now in this country that are trying to buy this garbage. And this is something I think the CDC misses the boat on as well. They like to believe that they have nothing to do with what's going on in the street. They created the demand. They allowed anybody in this country to get perk 30s. And why were they perk 30s? Because once the Oxy 80 was changed, nobody wanted it anymore. So, and it's amazing because the prescriptions that they write for Oxy 80s, they don't write a lot of them. But perk 30s, oh boy, do they. Because you can still smoke them, you can still shoot them, and you can still snort them. They can get away with it because it's only 30 milligrams. And they say that it's it's a faster release, but that's the pill du jour. That's exactly what everybody on the street wants, which is why people are getting caught with 20,000 or 50,000 or 1 million, right? Counterfeit pills. But that market came from people who started getting those at a pharmacy, and then simple supply and demand took over. And that really is exactly what happened. It was gallbladder and kidney. Oh Lord. You know something? The number of people even on the boat, if we just went down the list and said, hey, what was the ailment that started you out first taking any kind of pain medication? We could do it for weeks. Weird. All the West Virginia stories I hear from those days. I lived here most of my life and definitely seen a stupendous amount of absurd ridiculousness and insanity in the state. It was definitely targeted. If you read any of the books on the Sackler family, or you read any of the books on the opiate epidemic, the opioid crisis, it's not an accident. It's not just that people in West Virginia or people in Ohio just really wanted to get high. What it was the amount of blue collar jobs, people that went and worked hard, good, old fashioned American hard work kind of stuff. Well, those people get injuries. So they wanted to hit those doctors up so that every time someone walked in and said, I hurt my back at work, Oxy. I did this at work, Oxy. And then shortly thereafter, everybody said, hey, if you go to that doctor and you tell him you hurt your back at work, he's going to write you a prescription for 80s. And then the wheels come off. You nailed it. You really did. It's simple supply and demand. And there were so many people that wanted to buy that stuff that a huge amount of the stuff being made at Purdue Pharmaceutical ended up in one of 2 states. right? The two that really got hammered were West Virginia and Ohio. Pennsylvania didn't do real well either. But the big two are definitely those.
Biggest pill mill ever created was in West Virginia. And believe it or
Yeah.
not, it was from like a 5-foot Oriental doctor, little woman. She had.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
They made.
I know
they,
exactly.
They made a Netflix documentary about it.
I sat next to him on Con Air.
Yeah.
No joke.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's one of those situations where you walk onto an airplane that's full of people who broke the law and are handcuffed, and your eye goes like this. What is that dude doing here? You know what I mean? There's no ink anywhere on the guy's body, and he's got that deer in the headlight look like, I am not going to get out of this alive.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to the guy next to me, I'll bet you money he's a doctor. And they started asking questions, and yep, sure enough.
The one in West Virginia, that was a woman. That was, yeah.
Because yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane the amount of crap that
it's probably way more than one, I'm sure.
And then the roundup,
yeah.
You go and get all of these people.
Well, I know she had some like accomplices too. There are 2 other doctors working there,
right.
To the point where this place was open 24/7, and literally people were in the parking lot and they were just waiting to get a script. That was it, and they would just write for whatever they wanted, and it was and they would take cash only. It's cash only place. That's your first red flag, man. You see a cash only place, depending on what your goal is, you better pay attention. So, but yeah, no.
Chuck Norris says something me and my counselor noticed was that the constant negative bias and constant drilling of these drugs are causing people to relapse and or become curious. You know what? There is an element to that in my opinion, there is definitely an element to that. When a drug makes headlines day after day after day, I mean, with what we've got now, the headlines are this stuff is killing people. There was a belief across the globe that if it came from a pharmacy, right, they couldn't make something that was going to kill you. You were safe if you got something from a pharmacy, you were going to be okay. And up until the Sacklers, that probably was the case. I mean, really, but it's certainly not anymore.
We're at the top.
Alrighty, people. That brings us to the top of the hour. I like hanging out with you guys, even if I'm going off on one of these. And every once in a while, people, we have to. The CDC. This is my opinion. You can think of them what you will. Hey, Wages. I think you got someone saying hello.
Yeah. Hey guys, everybody, hit that like button, please.
On the way out, people do that. Pound on that like button on the way out. I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. It helps the big red button push the boat a little bit further out. And that is always a good thing. It really is. We will be back tomorrow night. Same squirrel time, same squirrel place. Alrighty, between now and then, reach out and try to save somebody. I am Captain Tommy Scoble, and on the other side of the glass,
Captain Mark Wages.
Never a doubt. Good night, everybody. We love you.